The Riding Pony by O. Warning. This fic contains hardcore humiliation, domination, and submission. Applejack nervously stared at the big box Dash had deposited on the floor of the barn. "So, this is it?" "Yeah. You're okay with this?" Dash asked, watching her closely. Applejack took a deep breath and let it out. "Yep. And I got a safe word if I ain't, right?" Dash smiled and nodded. "You know it." "It's tougher than anything I'll let you do so far," Applejack pointed out, still staring at the box. "That's what makes it hot." "Yeah," Applejack agreed. "Open it up." Dash pulled the lid off the box, and Applejack looked down into it. Laying inside was a stiff, thick, shiny saddle. This was obviously not a piece of clothing. The top was contoured for the comfort of the pony using it, and that sure wasn't the pony wearing it. Applejack was looking at a riding saddle, one that she had let her mare friend buy for her to wear. Modern saddles were just pieces of clothing, useful for keeping warm and letting a pony dress up a bit if they felt like it. But the saddles they were derived from were much different. In the old days, wealthy and powerful ponies would keep servants, riding ponies, and make them carry their masters so that delicate upper-class hooves didn't have to touch the ground. That was what the upper class said, at least. The alternate theory was that it was simply a display of power and intimidation. But according to history, the wealthy and powerful were largely unicorns and pegasi, and riding saddles were always made for earth ponies. Some unicorns had even written essays about how it was the natural order for earth ponies to be beasts of burden. Of course, no pony in Equestria believed that anymore. Certainly not Rainbow Dash, who had an earth pony for a mare friend. When Dash first brought it up, AJ nearly bucked her in the head. Applejack was willing to submit on her nights, but a riding saddle was something else. It carried a history of degradation that she wasn't sure she was okay with. On the other hoof, there was something sexy about finding out how far Dash could push her before she snapped. That was how her turns usually went, and so far Dash had found nothing sexy that was humiliating or painful enough to keep AJ from following her orders. But Applejack wasn't sure she could keep from rebelling against being treated as a riding pony, and that was exciting. So she gave Dash the go-ahead to get one. Looking at the reality of it now was even worse and better at the same time. Dash was smiling and looked hopefully between the saddle and AJ, while AJ just stared at it. She was not a riding pony, that was crystal clear to her, and Dash, and to any pony who ever met her, she had complete control over herself and her life, and that control meant that she could be a riding pony if she wanted to. She looked up at Dash. "Okay, put it on me." Dash took it out of the box, then flew up on top of her, sitting it gently on her back. The Pegasi landed and used her mouth to tighten the belt under AJ's torso. The saddle wrapped firmly around her body, held in place. It felt stiff and heavy, and it was impossible to ignore. With every breath she took, her sides pressed against it, and reminded her that she was wearing a real saddle for another pony to ride. Any time Dash took control, AJ felt a tension between the part of her that had decided to do anything Dash said, and the part that refused to take orders from a bossy, self-centered little Pegasus. It was a strange, pleasurable feeling of being nervous and off balance while she and Dash combined both of their wills to force her into submission. But that was barely a shiver compared to what she was feeling now. The humiliation and anger at herself for allowing this was screaming through her brain, but the saddle seemed to exert a force of its own, telling her there was no resisting, no option but to submit to her mistress. "AJ? You okay? Is it comfortable?" She nodded. She needed Dash's help. "Start, please." Dash smirked and ran a hoof casually down AJ's flank. "I'll start whenever I want to, riding pony. And I don't want to hear you say another word unless I ask you a question. You still need a bridle. Go get it." AJ nodded gratefully. Dash's orders combined with the power of the saddle to provide her tortured mind some relief. There was no point in struggle. She belonged to Dash, and the tension was as firmly reined in as Dash would keep her. Applejack stepped over to the box and pulled out the remaining items. One was a leather harness for her head, with reins attached. Dash rejected a real bridle because it would interfere with certain activities she was counting on. The other was a riding crop, and AJ shivered at the thought of Dash using that on her. Dash was hovering to get better use of her hooves, and took both objects from AJ. She set the crop aside, then removed AJ's hat and tossed it away. The Pegasus fit the harness over the earth pony's head and buckled it tight, tossing the reins over AJ's head. Dash stepped back to admire her work. "Nice. Just one more little thing." She flew around out of sight, and Applejack felt a snap on her rear. She raised her tail for Dash and felt a very light tug on it as it fell loose from her ribbon. Then there was a silky ribbon being tied towards the top of her tail, and a sharp tug. "All done. Can you lower your tail?" Applejack tried to relax it, but found herself still exposed, her tail tied to the saddle so that there was no way to hide herself. "No, ma'am." "Oh, yeah, perfect. Every pony should be able to see everything a riding pony has to offer. No pony of mine is going to hide the good stuff under a pretty tail." Dash grinned and flew up next to AJ and tugged off the ribbon holding her mane. "You're my riding pony, and you're offering me everything. Got it?" "Yes, ma'am." Applejack nodded. "In fact, you ought to be proud to have such an awesome mistress who wants to use you." "What do you say?" Dash said in a leading tone. Thank you, ma'am." "For?" "For using me like this." Applejack felt a blush burning her cheeks. "This is so awesome." Dash grinned and picked up the crop from where she had left it. There was a loop at the end to fit around a hoof, which she slid into place. "I'm going to ride you now." Applejack grit her teeth as Dash flew over her, and she felt Dash's weight land on her back. Dash was light. In their normal lives this would have been nothing, but here, with the saddle, she seemed much heavier. Applejack was a riding pony, carrying her Pegasus mistress. Dash wrapped the reins around her hooves, and gave AJ a sharp smack with the crop. "Giddy up, pony." AJ grunted at the crop, but started walking. She only went a few steps when she felt a tug on one side of the harness, turning her head. Applejack followed the command, even knowing that Dash probably had no direction in mind. She was trying her out like a new toy, seeing what she did and how she worked. But she was actually Dash's toy right now. The thought made her blush, and the heat of the blush seemed to travel all over Applejack's body. Using the reins, Dash directed Applejack around the barn. Occasionally Applejack would mistake a direction, or suspect that Dash never gave it in the first place, and the crop would land on her flank, sending a painful but exciting jolt through the earth pony. After a while, Dash leaned forward and whispered in Applejack's ear. "You know it would be even sexier than this? If I took you into town, like riders used to." The thought of that made Applejack's heart pound. She could never do that. Her pride would never let her. Every pony seeing her like this, wearing a saddle and reins, her tail tied up. They would know that she was Dash's willing servant in whatever she wanted. Applejack was lost in these visions, and she didn't even notice Dash steering her. She looked up and her eyes went wide as she found herself staring at the door of the barn. Dash whispered in her ear, "If I order you to walk out that door and down to town like this, would you do it?" Every part of her screamed, "Hey, no. There's no way she'd let another pony see her like this." But the force of her willpower stood against that. She had agreed to be Dash's riding pony, and that's what she was. If Dash wanted the whole town to see her, her place was to obey. These forces clashed within her, building a storm inside of her that almost reminded her of another kind of climax. She grit her teeth and answered, "Yes, ma'am." "That's so hot," Dash said. Applejack could feel her grind against the saddle. "Open the door." Applejack forced herself to open the door to the barn, cringing back from it. It was nighttime. The farm was dark and quiet, but any pony could see her family especially. If any pony heard ponies in the yard, Mac would come out and check it out, and see her like this. She felt like she was dying inside, just thinking of trying to explain it. "Walk," Dash commanded, and AJ couldn't hold back a whimper as she stepped out of the barn. She was shaking. Dash had to be able to feel it, and AJ knew it was probably turning her on. It was turning AJ on. Her tail was still tied high, unable to protect her soaked marehood from the cool night air. She was helpless to hide her arousal, and just as helpless to fight it. She was there on display for the world to see. "Maybe I'll just ride you into town right now and show you off," Dash whispered, sending a shiver up Applejack's spine. Applejack took 5 agonizing steps into the farmyard before Dash said, "Stop! You know if I rode you into town, I'd have to wait a while to get your tongue where it belongs. You don't want your mistress to have to wait, do you?" "No, ma'am," Applejack said quickly. "Then get your tail back in the barn, now." Dash smacked Applejack with the crop, and Applejack hurried to the barn. Once inside, Dash kept the reins wrapped around her hooves, and flew slowly towards a bale of hay, leading Applejack. The Pegasus laid on her back on the hay and spread her hind legs, using the reins to pull AJ's face towards her aroused sex. "Put that tongue where it belongs," Dash ordered, grinning. Applejack dug her tongue between the cyan lips, aiming for the spots she knew made her mistress crazy. Short, firm flicks to her clit had the Pegasus letting out staccato grunts immediately as she thrust her hips. Applejack switched to long, teasing licks that traced the line from her entrance to her clit. "Good girl," Dash panted. "Keep going." As Dash's hips continued bucking, Applejack matched their rhythm by plunging her tongue into the depths of her mistress, kissing and sucking the spot as Dash's juices coated her mouth and muzzle. Dash gave a loud moan in appreciation, her rear legs wrapping around AJ's head, holding her in place to ensure she finished the job. Applejack had no intention of stopping until Dash ordered her. So she worked Dash's sex through a long orgasm until the panting and happy Pegasus released her and said, "That's enough. Good job, pony." Also out of breath, Applejack nodded and waited for a command. Barely looking up, Dash asked, "What time is it?" "I think it's near 8, ma'am," Applejack answered, confused. "Great. Wash your face." Now thoroughly confused, Applejack tossed her reins back over her head and trotted to a trough, cleaning herself as best she could around the halter. She then went back to Dash, who had pulled herself up into the air and seemed to be listening. A few seconds later, there was a knock at the door of the barn. Dash grinned as Applejack stared at her. They hadn't talked about having any pony else here. Applejack didn't even want any pony to know that she was doing this. Reading her expression, Dash stroked a hoof down her mane and whispered, "Trust me." Applejack nodded, and Dash flew to the door. She opened it and said happily, "Come on in. Safe word is Appaloosa." Then Dash moved aside, taking a set of saddlebags with her as Applejack's eyes went wide. There was a long list of ponies she never ever wanted to see her like this, but towards the top of it was the white unicorn staring at her in surprise and wonder. "Oh my," Rarity said, smiling. Walking towards Applejack, she stopped in front of her and raised her eyebrows, the smile never leaving her face. "Pony, bow to the lady," Dash ordered. Applejack stood frozen, a war raging in her head. The thought of bowing to Rarity of all ponies was impossible. Bowing meant submission, and she had no doubt that that was what Dash intended by this little surprise. She was halfway ready to kill the Pegasus for letting Rarity even see her like this. At the same time, she saw the way Rarity was looking at her, that confident, appreciative smirk that was the look of a mistress, and it sent shivers up Applejack's spine. Rarity added a whole new dimension to the feelings Applejack was keeping in check, and that made this even more exciting. Applejack was lost in the battle between these ideas, unable to do anything but stare at Rarity. Then she heard Dash snap, "Pony!" and felt the smack of the crop on her flank, and there was nothing she could do but obey. She bowed to Rarity, looking down. She felt a hoof on her chin, and her face was lifted until she was staring into Rarity's blue eyes. "Do you know why Rarity is here?" Dash said next to her. "Yes, ma'am," Applejack replied, unable to look away from the smiling unicorn. "Tell me," Dash said. Applejack had to force the words out of her mouth. "I'm going to be her riding pony, too." Rarity grinned sadistically as Dash went on. "And she's going to use you however she wants, right?" "Yes, ma'am." "There you go, Rarity. Check her out. She's all yours." "Very nice," Rarity said. Then she broke their stare and started circling the earth pony. "I love these flanks." "Oh yeah, those are totally hot," Dash agreed. "I've got her tail tied up, so the view from the back is awesome." "Exquisite," Rarity said behind Applejack. "Spread your legs, pony." Applejack complied, knowing exactly the view Rarity wanted. She crouched down in front, pushing her rear in the air, ready to be mounted. "Oh my, it's warm in here," Rarity said. "Yeah, between her hind legs," Dash teased. "Rainbow Dash." Rarity tried to admonish the Pegasus. Then she gave a laugh. "Well, I suppose it's unavoidable." "That's why she has a tongue," Dash smirked. "First you should take her for a ride. Don't worry about getting the saddle all wet." "Are you sure you don't mind?" Rarity asked Dash without a glance at Applejack. "Nope. Have fun." Dash flew over to a bale of hay to perch and watch. Rarity walked over to Applejack's side. "Lower your rear." Applejack obeyed and soon felt Rarity's weight on her back. The unicorn was heavier than Dash, but still not uncomfortable, as AJ stood up. But then she felt a sharp tug at the reins that pulled her head back. "Do stand up straight." Grumbles formed in Applejack's mind as Rarity kept a tight hold on the reins, keeping her posture unnaturally straight for some pony carrying something heavy on her back. Those grumbles were erased by a hit from the crop, now floating in Rarity's magic. "Walk, pony." Applejack started walking. Rarity turned her head in the same way as Dash had, teasing her reaction and obedience. I believe I could get used to this, Rarity called to Dash. Yeah, you'd never have to get your hooves dirty again, Dash said, giggling. It does lack a bit of style. The way she moves is so work pony, Rarity said disdainfully. That's true, Dash considered. And she's your riding pony right now. I think she should prance. Excellent idea. Prance, pony, Rarity chirped happily. Applejack started to blush, but she obeyed, quickening her pace and lifting her knees into a happy little skip. Oh, a little bumpy, but not at all unpleasant, Rarity said, giggling a little. Dash grinned. What I wouldn't give for a camera. Applejack grit her teeth so hard she thought they would wear down, forcing herself to serve her rider in spite of the amusement she was giving the Pegasus. Suddenly, Applejack whimpered, and her eyes went wide as a strange sensation started between her legs. It took a second to realize that a blue glow surrounded her nub, causing the gentle stimulation that was now the only thing Applejack could think of. I thought that might feel nice. As long as you prance, it shall continue. The earth pony pranced eagerly, building the pressure inside of her. The vibration remained maddeningly steady, no matter how much she wished for more sensation, but the magic was clearly doing its job. It became nearly impossible to move. Her face was twisted and her body was trying to seize with climax. She felt the crop against her flank, urging her on. As she felt her pleasure pushing her body through the motions demanded by her mistress, she felt the tension release. She stumbled a step and let out a sharp gasp. The magic stopped immediately, and so did her reward. The brief orgasm was just a tease. She was completely unsatisfied, more desperate for attention than ever. Let me down, pony, Rarity ordered. Applejack kneeled down and Rarity dismounted. Thank your mistress, pony, Dash called from the hay. That's way more than I would have done. Thank you, ma'am, Applejack said to Rarity. Dash took the crop from Rarity's magic and flew up next to AJ. Did you want more? Please, ma'am. The crop smacked her once again. No way. Not until you take care of your mistresses. No pony's touching that wet, needy little pussy of yours until you make sure she's completely satisfied. Applejack looked over at Rarity, who cocked her tail to the side and smirked over her shoulder. I trust you'll do a thorough job. She nodded and moved towards the gleaming slit cautiously. Or she tried to. When she was about a foot away, she felt magic grab the back of her head and shove it towards the unicorn's presented treasure, holding it there. Applejack took a breath through her nose, the air bringing with it the overwhelming scent of Rarity's lightly perfumed sex. She realized that she'd never even kissed Rarity, and here she was with her muzzle buried between her hind legs. Worship me, pony, Rarity commanded. Applejack hesitantly stuck out her tongue and licked between the bright white folds, teasing her for the first time. Oh, come on, you can do better than that, Dash said next to her, and she felt the smack of the crop. Eat her like she deserves, riding pony. The slight pain and the jolt it sent between Applejack's hind legs made her moan into Rarity's pussy, but she quickly tried to follow her mistress's orders in earnest, lashing her tongue over the delicate orifice. Good girl, Dash said as Rarity started to moan and press back against AJ's muzzle. AJ felt Dash land on her back and start grinding herself against the saddle. Applejack explored the most intimate parts of her friend with her mouth, licking and sucking at her clit, then switching to deep kisses that lightly scraped her teeth over the sensitive edges of her hole. Rarity responded by driving Applejack's face into her, using her magic to push the earth pony forward while her white rear rhythmically ground against her. Between Applejack's experience and Rarity's control over the situation, it wasn't long before Rarity was brought to orgasm, soaking Applejack's muzzle the whole time while she drew out her climax. Rarity's passionate moans were soon mixed with dashes as she rode AJ's saddle, obviously bringing herself to the same state. Rarity's moans grew softer, and she released her magical hold on Applejack. AJ gave a few soft nuzzles to ease her down, while Dash suddenly stopped moving on her back and leaned forward, resting against Applejack's neck. After a few minutes, Rarity straightened up. She smoothed her mane, then looked behind her with a wicked smile, taking in her tail and the sex-covered face of the riding pony standing behind it. "You've made quite a mess. This will need to be cleaned up," Rarity observed. Then a blue glow of magic lifted the end of Applejack's long mane and brought it to the still dripping white mound. Applejack heard Dash's snorting giggle from her back as Rarity casually used AJ's mane to clean herself. Applejack's cheeks burned as she watched her own mane used to sop up the sticky juices from between the unicorn's legs. She couldn't look away. The sight of a part of her being used as a rag to clean Rarity's sex was humiliating and disgusting, and made her whole body tense up to keep from saying something. Nowhere was that tension more evident than between her own legs, where she could feel her pussy winking, wet and ready. Applejack breathed deeply, silently hoping that the two of them would give her some kind of release soon. Every part of her was ready to explode, if given any sort of pleasure. As Rarity dropped her mane, AJ felt a soft lick on her ear. She moaned, keeping her eyes ahead. Rarity turned around and grinned, seeing the blush on her cheeks and the tension in her face. The licking on her ear stopped, replaced by Dash's sadistic whisper. "Thank her." Applejack drew a shaky breath and stared at Rarity's icy eyes. Rarity's grin never left her face, but she raised her eyebrows expectantly. "Thank you, ma'am." "Oh, you're quite welcome," Rarity said straight to Applejack. Then she turned to Dash. "You've trained her well." "Of course I have. Look at her. She was born to be a riding pony." "It's a shame we don't have another riding pony," Rarity said to Dash, but she was glancing at Applejack's face. "A huge, well-endowed stallion we could force to rut her all night." Despite being a mare's mare, AJ's body was reacting wildly to that idea. She was already on the edge, and the idea of being forced to perform like that in front of her mistresses had her wishing for the big stallion Rarity wanted. "Rarity, you're a tease, you know that?" Dash grinned. "I know, but since we don't have a stallion like that, I did bring the next best thing." "I know, but since we don't have a stallion like that, I did bring the next best thing." Rarity's horn glowed, and out of her saddlebag floated a large brown dildo. Applejack's eyes went wide, and she swallowed nervously, hoping they weren't serious. The toy was larger in girth than any stallion she had ever seen. She couldn't imagine it fitting inside of her. She glanced at Dash, praying that this was a joke. Dash was looking between her and the toy, grinning. "Yes, this is going to be amazing." I felt we should offer her something to prevent her from acting up in discontent, Rarity explained. That ought to take care of her, Dash said with a laugh. Then she said in AJ's ear, Think about that thing pushing into you. It's going to stretch you so much. It'll look awesome. It's too big, Applejacks said. She felt the crop hit her flank. I didn't ask you, pony, Dash said with a smirk. She flew off AJ and landed in front of her. But if you're worried, I'll let you beg us for mercy, as long as you get in position. Applejack crouched her front and stuck her rear up. She swallowed the last of her pride and closed her eyes. Please don't use that on me, ma'am. It's gonna hurt. You know I never had nothing that big. Please. Oh, I know, Dash agreed. I've been letting you off too easy. It's gonna give you the pounding you need. I don't need pounding. I'm just dandy. I'll take care of the two of you real good if you put that away. Please, let me take care of you. Anything you can think. I won't make a whimper for myself. You got my word. Applejack stammered. She felt a delicate tongue invade her hot sex with a long, sensuous lick. Ugh, Celestia. You are the worst liar, Dash said, amused. You need this. You want it so bad, and Rarity just proved it. Now, take it like a good pony. She felt the cool tip of the object press against her exposed, wet hole, and whimpered. Please, you can use something else, just not, She was cut off by her own cry as the huge toy was pressed into her. Her muscles contracted, trying to keep it out, and she found herself fighting a painful and losing battle against the full force of Rarity's magic. Stop it, please, she panted, the safe word swimming in her mind, teasing her. It stopped, and Applejack took a deep breath just as it shoved a few inches deeper, taking the breath away. She felt tears in her eyes and tried to fight them back. No more, please, it hurts. She felt a hoof stroke her mane, and Dash's calm voice ordered her. Look at me, pony. Applejack looked up into Dash's calm, smirking face. Relax. It's going in, so just relax and it'll hurt less. Applejack took a deep breath and nodded. Dash looked over to Rarity. Give her a minute. Trying to make herself relax seemed impossible. No matter how she told herself that this was okay, her body was rebelling against it. It didn't help that the part of her mind trying to make this work was also fighting the parts of herself that realized she was wearing a saddle and being violated for the pleasure of two other ponies. The tension of trying to relax enough to allow the enormous thing inside of her was the same tension she'd been fighting all day, but she was afraid she's pushed it to the breaking point. Combined with the pain of her stretched pussy, the safe word was on the tip of her tongue. She hated to give in, but the word was there for a reason. She had to have a limit to what she could put herself through. Then Dash whispered, I want to watch you take that. Take it for me. Yes, ma'am, Applejack said, taking a deep breath as her willpower returned. She felt her whole body relax slightly. The pain didn't matter. What mattered was what her Pegasus mistress wanted. Give me more, please. AJ groaned as it was forced deeper, filling her in ways she had never imagined until the fake stallionhood could go no further. Once it stopped moving, she took a few slow, deep breaths, trying to prepare herself for the pounding she was sure to be getting. Despite the discomfort, anticipation made her clench around the object. Behind her, Rarity gasped. Beautiful! Those amazing tense muscles, the obscenity of the toy stretching her beyond endurance. Rainbow, you simply must see this. Rainbow left her side and flew over her. Applejack heard her land, then silence for a moment before she heard a squeaky, shaky moan. That's the hottest thing I've ever seen. Watch this, Rarity suggested. The object was pulled out slowly, inch by inch, dragging against her passage. When all she could feel was the tip still in her, just as she started to relax, the entire length was rammed back inside. It slid in quickly and easily, lubricated by her juices, but Applejack let out a loud grunt as her muscles clenched around the invading force. Oh my gosh, give it to her faster. Make her scream, Dash requested breathlessly. Applejack barely had time to draw breath before the toy was tugged out of her and thrust back inside, forcing another grunt from her and quickly drawing out a second time and forcing its way back in place. The motion was repeated over and over, in and out of her like an unstoppable machine. She tried to lean away from the non-existent stallion ramming her. She clenched against it, but that only made every sensation stronger. The toy fought and won against her body. In her mind, battles raged between pleasure and pain, tension and release, submission and rebellion, building into an incomprehensible force that froze her entire body and cleared her mind as she threw her head back and screamed over and over. Applejack had no idea how long she was lost in that release, but after some time her screams quieted to whimpers, and the toy slowed and stopped, and she fell to the ground, panting. The toy pulled out of her for the last time, and she looked back and saw Rarity and Rainbow Dash staring at her in wonder. Laying on the ground, she closed her eyes. Rarity's magic was quickly transferred to the saddle and harness, unbuckling them and whisking them away. As worn as Applejack's body was, it felt lighter without the costume. Removing it calmed the last of her pressed feelings, and allowed her to truly relax for the first time since Dash brought that box to the barn. AJ, are you okay? Dash asked, concerned. Tired. Get on over here, Sugar Cube, Applejack said, eyes still closed. Dash hurried to her side and laid down next to her, nuzzling her face. Applejack opened one eye and saw Rarity standing and watching them. You too, Missy. I reckon you owe me a few nuzzles, too. Rarity smiled and laid down on the other side of Applejack, giving her a friendly nuzzle on the cheek. I owe you quite a lot, darling. That was unbelievable. It was nothing. It was hot for me, too. Applejack chuckled. Course, I'm going to be walking funny for a few days. That was not nothing, Dash said, running a hoof over AJ's back. There's nothing in Equestria sexier than how strong you were wearing that saddle. I don't know how you could do everything we made you do without bucking some pony in the face. You know I could never do it. I freak out if you get too mean to me. Applejack smiled. I know it, Sugar Cube. That's why I got rope. Do the two of you do this often? Rarity asked, levitating a wet cloth from the trough and using it to clean the sex and sweat from Applejack's coat and mane. We take turns. Applejack rolled her eyes at the washing up, but didn't protest Rarity's treatment. Never had no pony to play with us, though. That was a real humdinger, Dash. You took it like a champ, Dash said happily. I was sure you'd call a safe word on that one. Rarity raised a disapproving eyebrow at Dash. You invited me anyway? We like it rough, Dash said with an impish grin and a shrug. I noticed. Rarity said with a smirk. Didn't see you holding back there. Yes, about that. A worried look crossed Rarity's face. Applejack, darling, I'd like to apologize in case I said anything or did anything insensitive. Rarity, that was kind of the point of the thing, Applejack said with a smirk. I mean, well, offensive. She nodded towards the saddle. Oh, that. Well, neither of y'all would keep a riding pony, right? No way, Dash said, shaking her head. That's totally wrong. Perish the thought. And then I reckon that as long as we're all okay with it and we never tell no pony, there ain't no harm in saying some stuff that gets you booked in the face some other time, Applejack said with a look to both Rarity and Dash that emphasized the last part she said. And we're never telling any pony about this, ever, Dash said quickly. Thought you wanted to ride me into town, Applejack teased. Oh my gosh, do I? But you know what ponies would think if I did that. I could kiss the Wonderbolts goodbye if they thought I treated Earth ponies like that. I know, Applejack smiled and nuzzled Dash. I knew you were bluffing. So in that case, are you going to dispose of the saddle? There's no way you can keep that. If some pony found it... Rarity trailed off, leaving the rest unspoken. Dash looked at the saddle wistfully and nodded sadly, but Applejack gave it a harder look. After a few moments, she said, No way we're getting rid of it. That's my saddle. Dash might have paid for it, but I reckon I earned it. Really, AJ? Dash's face lit up. You mean it? You're going to keep it? Yep. I'll find a hiding spot for it, and I don't got to worry like you two do. Any pony that finds it might think I got a few screws loose, but I reckon that's just a fact, Applejack said with a chuckle. Dash was in awe. That is too awesome. So can me and Rarity play with you again sometime? Sure can, if Rarity wants. I look forward to it, Rarity said with a wicked smile. Dash grinned and squealed, but Applejack just nuzzled her and got a smirk as wicked as Rarity's. Don't get too worked up. It's your turn next, Sugar Cube, and after this, I ain't going easy on you.